What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with Cheesehead TV, coming to you live, I hope, from my hotel room in Indianapolis. It's day one of the NFL 2019 Combine. Thought I'd jump on here, as low-tech as it might be. Sosa, yes, I am your father. Good to see everybody jumping in. Sorry I'm a little late. I'm going to try to hit 5 o'clock as close as I can each day, although scheduling may make things a bit difficult. But first day, got a lot of stuff set for the week. Thought I'd jump on here and see what's up. Good player comparison for Hawkinson. Oh, Michael's starting us off with a good one. Three guys told Albert Beer that Gronkowski is not out of the realm of possibility as a comp. It's pretty exciting to me. Do a room tour, not on your life. What's up, Julian? Thanks for jumping on. Perfect title. What's up, Myrtle Beach? Thanks for jumping on the chat. High praise, exactly. When our measurables done, we'll start to get some later in the week. The first part of this week will be a lot of medical and meeting behind closed doors for the prospects and the teams. We'll start to get on-field stuff in a couple days. This first part for the media is very much about getting to speak with the NFL people, the coaches, the GMs. That starts bright and early tomorrow morning. Brian Gutekunst is set to one of the first ones up. He's at 10:45, I believe, 10:45 a.m. Eastern. That's 9:45 for those of you in the Central Time Zone. What's up, brother? What's up? What about the OG and the OT from Wisconsin? I like the OG. And the OT is not bad either. Thoughts on Bengals moving on from John Ross, possible pickup for the Packers? Martin, I got a lot of that today. I don't see them throwing a pick unless it's maybe something really super late, and the Bengals are just literally giving him away. He's fast, obviously, and that's well documented, but he hasn't done much in the league. Got a bit of a raw deal, I think, in Cincinnati, but they sure seem to be moving on and trying to get what they can for a former first-round pick who, obviously has blazing speed, but he hasn't done much with it in the NFL. Funnily enough, he was a pretty decent red zone weapon last year, and that is an area where the Packers kind of struggled. So maybe they see something there and pull the trigger. I tend to doubt it, but never say never. How likely do you think is it for the Packers to trade up and out of their first pick? Trade up and out? Not sure what you mean there, FMCH, but how likely is it that they trade up? I wouldn't say it's very likely, but if, there's a guy that Gutekunst absolutely loves and thinks is once in a lifetime prospect, it's a possibility. Maybe we could find an offensive tackle that could play guard for a year until Bulaga retires. Dalton Ridster fits that bill from Kansas State. Let's see. TJ Yeldon to the Pack. Seems like a good backup to Jones and a partner to Williams. I mean, if he's dirt cheap, maybe. I don't see them going the free agent route, but you never know. Nags, would you like to see Clay return? I would on a very team-friendly deal. I've said repeatedly, I think he'll probably try and find, what's out there, so to speak. But, you never know. Maybe there's something to him having a young family, wanting to keep them grounded and rooted in Green Bay. Maybe that works in the Packers' favor and they get him back on a team-friendly rate with the proviso that he plays a little bit more inside. And that's something he has certainly been resistant to throughout the years. Who is a must re-sign from the impending free agents? Javier, I know I might get killed for this by some people, but I don't see much of anything that's a must re-sign. Even Bashaw Breeland, and I know people keep harping on the need to re-sign him, and I think they should at least talk to his people and gauge where he's at and bring him in if it's reasonable. But I don't think you need to break the bank for the guy, and I certainly don't think anything he put on film last year warrants the deal he had in place from Carolina before he had his accident. I think he's a solid corner, and you can never have too many of them. But I don't think you have to go hog wild trying to re-sign the guy. Now, that said, you look at the rest of them, the only one who I think is a must bring back, luckily, is a restricted free agent, and that's Geronimo Allison. Outside of that, I don't think there are too many must-haves. Sorry, I meant trade down. Very good. Yeah, the trade down, could I see them trading down and out? If you mean from number 30, yeah, I think that's a distinct possibility, especially when teams see quarterbacks start to fall, which happens every year, especially if they're late in the first round. Teams want to get up back into that late first round because they want to have that fifth-year option on their quarterback. It's the best way to kind of mitigate costs and keep, that young QB on a team-friendly deal. So, now if there's a player there that I think that Gutekunst absolutely loves, I don't think he's going anywhere. But if the board is even and they can get value in trading back, and there's a team that desperately wants to get up for a QB or anybody else, then yeah, I don't think it's an impossibility. Bring back TJ Lang or Sitton? Sitton I don't see. He's basically just a walking body cast at this point. Not that Lang's much better, but I think Lang at least, has a little bit more mileage left to give if he indeed does play. Now, we all saw how the concussion issue really lingered for him last year. I said earlier in my Facebook chat, I think, I won't be surprised if he ends up retiring. It was a very serious length of time that he was away. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he even ends up on the market, which I suspect he probably will. But if he does, maybe Gutekunst makes the call, but I doubt it. Let's sign Donald Driver. I love it. I love it. I'd love to see Josh Allen in the green and gold. I know it's not likely, but what would it take? A lot if he's indeed being looked at the top 5, which appears to be the case if you go by most mocks now. Most pre-combine mocks are pretty worthless, so who knows? But, I mean, if that is indeed where teams are thinking of pulling the trigger on him, it's going to take quite a bit to get up from 12. And I don't see Gutekunst, unless, again, he thinks Josh Allen is the next Von Miller. I don't see him making that kind of move. We have 4 picks in the top 50. That is correct. Fant is very athletic, but can block as well. Sosa, I agree. Actually, it's funny because Fant, when the draft industrial complex started revving up and you started hearing a lot about the 2 Iowa tight ends, the kind of book on both was Hawkinson can block and he can do stuff down the field, but he's not the receiver that Fant is. And Fant's a great seam guy and a great receiver, but he can't really block. And I don't think either one of those things are true. And I think as people and analysts have dove into the film a little bit more, that's kind of taken the narrative away on both of those. I think Hawkinson is a more complete player across the board, but I think Fant is a very, very good prospect. And I agree with you. I think his blocking has been maligned unfairly. I think he's a much better blocker than he's been given credit for in most circles. Would you rather have a free agent or a draft pick replace Cobb next year? Good question, Nathaniel. I mean, it really depends on how LaFleur wants to design the offense and how important that quicker darting / slot corners is going to be to him. Now, ultimately, you want to get the best players possible, and then the coaching staff makes things work for those players and puts them in good position. I don't think they're going to be too active in free agency on that front. I could be wrong. Maybe they go hard after a Cole Beasley, etc. I tend to think they'll look to the draft. I like Beasley a lot, but again, I'm not paying big money. And I think there are lots of teams with tons of cap space who are probably going to be able to blow the doors off early on in free agency. And I don't think the Packers are going to be involved in those talks. I could be proven wrong here, but that's my hunch. Odds Nick Perry plays in the green and gold next year. Josh, I think the odds are pretty decent, actually. I wouldn't be surprised if they cut him, but I expect him to be back simply because of depth. They could save a little money, but, heading into the draft, knowing that your starters are Fackrell and Gilbert, essentially, with Clay Matthews walking out the door, you're putting yourself in a pretty big hole. And I know you could save a little bit of money, but their cap is pretty healthy, even without cutting him. And I just don't see it. I don't see Gutekunst pulling the trigger there. Now, maybe he gets to a point where he's got a plan with the draft and free agency where he knows he's going to replenish it. And he's got a path mapped out, and it includes being able to cut Nick Perry. I don't know. And how much I know I've talked to people inside the building who have tried to explain away Perry's struggles early in the year on the recovering from the training camp injury, etc. But to me, that's kind of the problem, is you're always talking about injury with this guy. I mean, even when he had his good year that got him paid, he was injured for a good part of it. So I don't know. You keep continually paying this guy to be injured, which is essentially what they're doing. And last year when he was on the field, he was pretty terrible. He was almost negligible. He was almost a hindrance. Outside of that, the big strip sack play he made in week 1, he was invisible, if not a detriment. So why keep paying this guy a pretty healthy chunk of change to keep going out there and being a problem for your defense rather than the opposing offense? I don't know. Sign Earl Thomas. Big Sam, I doubt it. I think he's going to get paid big time, and it's going to be by Dallas. I think all signs have been pointing that way for quite some time. The Packers could always surprise us. Maybe, Gutekunst makes a big splash, but, Thomas is getting up there. He's coming off a serious injury. He's been injured several times now in the last few years. Still one of the best when he's on the field, but you're probably going to have to pay a premium price to get him in the door, and I don't see Gutekunst going that route. There was a report that the Packers were one of 6 teams on AB. Yeah, and there was a report that they're not one of the 6 teams, and there was a report that, the Bengals and the Steelers are talking, and there's all sorts of stuff being chatted about, but I don't see it. Yeah, I think they will get him out of the AFC, and I do think he'll probably land not in Green Bay, but someplace where that he can get as far away from having to play against Pittsburgh as possible. But I don't see Green Bay happening. How would you address the tight end position this offseason? I would draft it twice. I would either get Hawkinson or Fant early and then another one late. Do you think MVS will improve in his second year? In absence of my no cam, I'm pointing to the regular cam and saying yes. Thoughts on Captain Munnerlyn? I don't see him going that route. Older corner that, if they want to bring in a veteran, just re-sign Bashawn Breeland. Munnerlyn's a fine player, but there's a lot of tread on that tire, off that tire. Any young guy already on the roster you think is expected to grow into a productive guy next season? I would put Tony Brown in that category. I think he gets lost in the shuffle a lot in the offseason conversation about the secondary. I see nothing but upside with this kid. Now, a lot of this will be down to him, how much work he does. Can he make that jump from year 1 to year 2? He's got the talent. The tools are all there. So you saw earlier in the year with some of the after the play penalties, he's got to knock that off. He's got to keep his head on straight. But, telling you what, he plays down in and down out. He's competitive as hell, has good ball skills, not afraid to mix it up in the run game. I really like him. And again, if he puts in the work this offseason, comes into, offseason workouts and camp in good shape and, his head in the playbook and another year in the same system with Mike Pettin, I really like what they have there. I think he could be a solid contributor. I'm not saying he's going to line up and start, but he's definitely going to be one of the first guys off the bench in sub packages if he continues to develop like I think he can. What players are you looking forward to seeing in Indy? Well, Hawkinson, obviously. The edge rushers, without a doubt. The quarterbacks, I always been interested in the quarterbacks. It's an odd class with the Kyler Murray addition late in the process so far. Daniel Jones, Locke, etc. These guys, none of them have really stood out to me outside of the Ohio State kid, Haskins. I really like his game, but Daniel Jones, I don't see that at all. But I am interested to see him throw and, do the workouts and hear the buzz about him, hear what he has to say at the podium, etc. It's always a good time to kind of feel these guys out a little bit, see what the personalities are like. Ultimately, none of it really matters. What matters the most is the game tape. And for teams, what matters the most is the medical and the interviews that we're not privy to. But it's always just a little bits of information that you can gather along the way. How much for Lance Kendricks? I don't know. It's a good question. I've heard absolutely nothing in regards to the Packers wanting to bring him back. That said, it is Indy. It is Combine Week, and I do know his agent is flying in tomorrow. So as is often the case, while undoubtedly get pieces of information, bits of reporting regarding Packers talking to guys, what their plans are for guys. That'll undoubtedly start to leak out starting tomorrow. Am I credentialed again? I am credentialed again. I will be in the mix because the NFL controls the credentialing for this. So they credential me. The Packers never credential me unless I'm working for the Green Bay Press-Gazette. Could you see us drafting 2 edge rushers in the first round like we did with corners last year? Absolutely. No doubt. Wouldn't be surprised at all if they took one at 12 and they took one at 30. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if they took one at 12 and then traded up from 30 and got another one. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it happened, I would not be surprised whatsoever. Can you see Brown to the Bears? I guess it's a possibility. I mean, those cap hits are going to come up on them awfully quick, but they've got a quarterback on a rookie deal. That's what you're able to do. Nagler, we need constant live tweeting tomorrow. Please and thank you. I'm all over it for you. Don't worry about it. Go Bears. Sir, you are in the wrong place. Were you just not live on Facebook? Not complaining. Kevin, I was. I was live on Facebook earlier this afternoon, and now I'm live on YouTube. I'll probably be live on Periscope later. I'm going to be giving you guys lots and lots of different streams and content throughout the week, tons of different stuff. I'll be doing a podcast later tonight on Patreon. So tons of stuff coming your way all week long. Can some good pass rusher drop to 30? Who? Can they? Sure. Will they? You know, if I knew that, I'd go to Vegas. But Montez Sweat is probably the one guy I can see lasting to 30 of the big name guys. You know, I know he got a lot of buzz coming off that one big play he had in practice at the Senior Bowl where he obliterated an offensive tackle. But for the most part, his week wasn't that productive and wasn't. It just didn't jump out at you, either the practices or the game. And I know people, you know, have got him in that first tier. I tend to think he's probably top of the second tier when it comes to the pass rushers. And I think, you know, there's a good chance he'll be there at 30. Now, will the Packers like him and take him? There, I have no idea. But that's the one guy I could see falling to 30 of that first kind of group that, you know, online prognosticators have kind of placed him in. What position would you like the Packers to draft 3 times in this year's draft? Obviously alluding to wide receiver last year and running back the year before that. I would say safety. I was talking about that very thing with someone earlier today. I think, you know, if there's a spot where they could take 3 guys and kind of throw it against the wall and see what sticks, that's the position. I mean, last year they got so bad at safety, they were signing guys off the street and converting corners to play safety. You know, you look at the mixing and matching they had to do down the stretch last year. It's incredible that they were able to field a defense, much less one that knew the calls, the switches and stuff at the line of scrimmage. You see how they lined up those last 2 weeks. I mean, it's kind of crazy they were able to even be somewhat coherent, although obviously Matthew Stafford kind of threw all over them. But yeah, safety is the one spot on the depth chart that is absolutely in dire need of an upgrade. Why does everyone hate on Perry when Clay Matthews has been in decline? Because I think Clay Matthews still shows bursts and athleticism, whereas Perry has been absolutely invisible outside of that one big play in week 1. I think to me, that's the most obvious answer there. Yes, has Matthews been in decline? No question. But the Packers aren't on the hook for any more money with Matthews. So if they do bring him back, it would probably undoubtedly be for a team-friendly wage, a deal. Whereas with Perry, you're paying him a whole lot more money for very little to no production and to be injured all the time. So I think that's kind of the duality there. The Bears still suck. Correct, Riley. Thank you. Fant falls to 30? Yeah, I think there's a good chance of that happening. 3 punters for Banky. Oh, I hope he's watching. In all caps, Devin, is this the year Gutekunst actually gets a deal done with a big-name free agent? You mean like Jimmy Graham last year? Don't lie. You thought that was pretty cool last year when he signed Jimmy Graham. There were big headlines. It was early on in free agency. It was one of the big fish. No one thought it was going to go to Green Bay. And then he went to Green Bay. There's all sorts of hoopla and hollering and fun times. And then the season happened. Be wary of what you wish for. That's all I'm going to say. Nags, why did Rodgers drop all the way to 24? What is this, a 30 for 30? You can read about it. Thoughts on Antonio Morrison? Plays with a lot of attitude. Michael, I wouldn't mind bringing him back on a very team-friendly deal. I think, like you said, he's got an attitude. Plays all sorts of nasty. He's a good thumper. Interested to see what they do between him and Jake Ryan. Where is Jake Ryan with the injury, etc.? They're kind of similar guys, although I think Ryan's a little bit better in coverage. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having him back on a cheap 1 year, 2 year deal. But we'll see. Well, we'll see how they're how they attack the draft, what they're expecting from Oren Burks. Man, that's a draft pick that needs to start paying off. It certainly didn't show much last year. I'll take one or two more here. I bet we trade with the Seahawks at 21 to get Hawk. Seattle needs picks. Well, that's two things you're saying there. Number one, I agree with. I think, yes, Seattle needs picks, and they are always a good trade target for the Packers. There's a lot of familiarity there between the two front offices. Hawkinson being available at 21 is where I think you're going to be surprised. I'll be surprised if he lasts till 21, but you never know. It is tight end. That is a bit of a devalued position, especially in the first round. But, yeah, I think he's going to be gone by the time 21st pick rolls around. I could be wrong. Egler's never right, as we all know. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to jump. Thank you so much for all the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. I'll be back tomorrow here on YouTube. I'll probably be, like I said, on Periscope later tonight. Make sure you're checking the Instagram. It's Aaron's Story, Cheesehead TV. Check out Patreon exclusively. We'll have my podcast there. I'll be probably going solo tonight, but I'm going to have guys like Matt Miller and some other draft guys later in the week. Jump on board. It's a good time. $5 for the month, every month, to support everything we do at Cheesehead TV, not just the podcast, but all of our work. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll see you throughout the week here in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine.